listening to the 14th source for all geeky and nerdy news and discussion, which means that you're listening to a podcast.
For all intents and purposes,
I'm D. Bethel.
And I am K. Silva.
And we are your two comic-creating nerd hosts, giving you the things that we like to talk about, but filtered through inquisitive and critical lenses in the episode for Friday, February 2nd, 2024.
Whoa. Wait. It's February 2nd. You're right. I'm driving down to San Diego right now. How?
That is unsafe.
I know. Well, you said you needed me to record.
Yes. And I'm glad you were here for us. So keep your eyes on the road.
Thank you.
And keep your head in the game, because we are here to talk about nerdy and geeky stuff. Because as you might have heard, dear listeners, my regular co-host Andrew is unavailable for a variety of reasons, which we might elaborate upon next week.
He hates Dan.
Yes, but we have Kyrun here to do kind of like a con artist, for all intents and purposes, crossover, for lack of a better word. Here to bring you some content, some information, and hopefully some smiles. Mostly because, like, a con artist, I feel like is a separate thing. I want to, like, spend some time formulating what it is that the whole episode is about. But I wanted to instead just, like, let's just bring Kyrun in. Let's just do an episode so that we can give our dear listeners some content. So, Kyrun, how you doing? It's been a minute. It's actually been over a year. I was looking at this. The last Con Artist episode that came through has been just over a year ago. How you doing? I'm going to give you this platform. What have you released? What's on the docket? And, of course, generally, how are you doing?
Well, Dan, I'm actually a little disappointed in you because we actually did a convention together just a few months ago called Crocker Con.
Oh, yeah.
I even interviewed you at a panel at Crocker Con. Yeah, and we could have done a con artist episode about Crocker Con. So I'm a little disappointed in you right now.
Well, do you want
to... And the bad thing is, you and I conversate multiple times a day, almost every day of the week.
I don't know if I want to go here, Kyrun, because literally like the 2 days later, I tested positive for COVID.
Yes, you did.
So there's a bit of shame.
Yeah.
In that experience there. And
well, I told you to stop licking all the water fountains.
But the problem is I kept licking all the handrails.
Oh,
and I think that was my downfall. But that actually was a really good conversation. And the thing is, like, we didn't need to bring it up because you have that available, I believe, on your Four Tales podcast feed.
Yes, it is at the Four Tales Podcast YouTube channel and on our website, fourtalespodcast.com, where if you haven't listened to the Four Tales Podcast before, you can go back and listen to all our amazing episodes, including last week's episode where we interviewed Xing Shen, creator of a bunch of books I can't pronounce the name of. And 2 weeks ago, we had Larry Stroman and Todd Johnson, the creators of the million-copy selling Tribe comic. So, you want to listen to those, you can.
I've listened to all those episodes, but I will say, also because I'm a Larry Stroman fan, like, Larry Stroman... Let's talk about Larry Stroman.
Oh,
let's give him
this
a minute.
This is not where I thought we were going on this,
no, me neither.
Episode. So.
But like...
But it makes sense considering we were talking about Tyler, the Creator, and Earl's sweatshirt before we started recording. So,
but like Larry Stroman was one of those artists... He was like one of the first artists, I would say, with Jay Lee and Mike Mignola, who broke out of that like Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri kind of like style. Yes. But I was also like, like this is good. Yeah. This is like really good. And I would say like Larry Stroman especially, there's obviously like a care and consideration and quality that was like, he like knows what he's doing and it's doing something very different. And I remember those, and you brought this up in that episode, I should say. I feel like you came across kind of starstruck.
Yeah.
But you brought up like the X Factor of it. Like that X Factor run, I don't know if even he realizes, I'm sure he does, but like, because he left right before Executioner's Song. And it was actually Jay Lee that took over from him, right?
Mm-hmm.
The artistic mishmash of all of them just broadened so many young people's minds that I don't know if he truly appreciates the depth of outreach that he had with his work on X Factor. I really wonder that.
I don't think he probably does, just because he's not talked about like that. Especially in that era, everybody talks about, Liefeld, Lee, McFarlane, Silvestri, like you mentioned. I mean, the people that left Image initially to start up Image, they talk about those people. They talk about people like Dan Jurgens, who had such a huge run on Superman, but no one really talks about Stroman and Jay Lee and that sort. And I mean, even Mike Mignola, who you could probably say blew up in the 90s, and with his runs there, he's not talked about like that either. He's talked about his work as a whole, but he's not talked about how influential he was to artists, and just showing the comic book realm that, hey, you don't have to have the completely sculptured superhero to have an exciting or interesting looking book. Same thing with Stroman. You don't have to have this clean look to all your lines. You can have this sort of dark and moody look,
and abstracted, and like not to get too like art theory kind of thing, but like almost like impressionistic look. Like it's not realistic in the traditional sense.
If you look at X Factor, that first 80 issues of X Factor, no, actually, let me rephrase that, 90, because after Stroman, you had people like Joe Quesada on there. And then you had
God, that's a good point.
And Wills Portacio was on there. I mean,
and also let's pause right there. Yeah, because X Factor, you want to say the first 90, but like we're talking about actually starting from like issue 72 or whatever, right?
Yeah,
and then onward.
Well,
right?
No, even from the beginning, you had
from Wills,
the Simonsons. Not a conventional looking look.
No,
it was quite closer to what you would consider a conventional looking superhero, but even Walt Simonson's look was very unique in how he drew things. So I mean, that whole X Factor run from like the first 90 or so issues had a unique look that was different from everything that X-Men had, and then all of a sudden they just stopped doing that.
Yeah. Although I will say, during the current, let's call it quote unquote Krakoa run, there was a really good run of X Factor with the art of David Baldeón. He's a Spanish artist.
Okay.
He's an artist I really like. It was kind of cool. The run, it was a very short run, unfortunately. But that's like
normal nowadays, unfortunately.
X Factor was like the police procedural series of the Krakoa X-Men, post Hickman universe. Basically, like, whatever. But I love Baldeón's artwork. That's the thing, and it was pretty good. But X Factor is a really interesting series, and part of what makes it interesting is, no doubt, in part to Larry Stroman's art. Yeah. And not to promote your show too much, but
go ahead, please.
Again, the Four Tales podcast. One of the things I took away from that conversation was a profound statement that he made about style, artistic style, which is style is created because you're trying to solve a problem that you never solve. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's like, because it's bizarre. It's so fun. There was a moment in your interview where he's like, I hate drawing hair.
Yes.
And then we step back and we're like, the hair that you draw is like one of the things, Mr. Stroman.
Yeah.
It's just, it's incredible. So I would encourage everybody to go, and I shouldn't do this on our show, but go over and listen on the Four Tales podcast. Listen to Larry Stroman and his co-writer Todd Johnson talk about Tribe. It's an incredible listen, especially since they're bringing Tribe back, as was revealed on that episode.
Yeah, and we were excited to have them on. We are both huge fans of their work, so definitely everybody go check out Tribe when you can. Check out the Four Tales podcast. If you want to watch on YouTube, you can, but the audio portion is just as wonderful because you don't get to see my messy background. So okay.
And where can we find your comics?
TaurusComics.com.
Anyway, moving on.
Well, Archie, where can we find your comics at?
I don't know. Do I make comics anymore? Who knows?
You do. Don't do that. You do.
I was going to draw comics today. I got out new pages because I had thumbnailed pages ahead. I'm like, I got some time. No papers are coming in. The semester just started. What I do as I'm cleaning off my desk, it's covered in dust because it's been barren for months. What do? I cut the heel of my palm.
Oh, snaps.
As I'm cleaning my desk. I'm like, well, crap. Here is a sign if I've never seen one. Long John is never going to end. But we'll see how it goes.
Wait, what did you cut it on? Like, did you have random knives just laying around your desk?
Yes, that's what I do. Oh. I have knives out because my guns are out and we need protection from all angles.
Wow.
The long and short of it is I need to either upgrade my desk or get a new drawing desk. That's what it is, Kyrun.
No, wait, no, you don't, because you teachers just got a new raise coming up, so you're flush with
I'm
money.
rich now, so dinner's on me, everybody.
Nice. I can get the 5 chicken nugget meals instead of the 3. Cool.
Speaking of chicken nugget deals, dear listeners,
wait, what?
We're here to give you the chicken nugget deals of your ears, which is our respective weeks in geek. And so, Kyrun, that's the kind of transition you've earned by being a guest on our show. So if you don't mind telling us, what was your week in geek like this week?
You know, I don't know really what I want to talk about. I think I do. And we talked about this a little bit before. I've been watching, or rewatching, I should say, Star Trek Next Generation.
Hell yes.
Shout out to BBC America for showing that every morning so I can watch that as my wife goes to work. I recently got into The Legend of Vox Machina. I know I'm a couple years late. But even with those amazing things, I think I'm going to talk about Saga of the Swamp Thing, Book 2 by Alan Moore.
I was going to say, like the Alan Moore stuff?
Yes.
Like the 80s?
Yes.
All right, Grandpa. Have fun.
Okay, so there's a little bit of backstory of this. My wife recently went to Sedona on a trip with her sister. And she was at a store and she was like, hey, there's some comic books here. Do you want me to buy you some? And I'm like, well, what are they?
That's literally probably the most romantic thing the spouse of a comic book nerd could say.
But I think it was like a thrift store. So she was like, well, she started reading off things and I was like, you know what? Just pick me out some books. And she was like, all right, I'm just going to pick you out some. And she got me, I think, like 5 books.
Wow.
There was like a couple of new Guardians of the Galaxy.
Nice.
God, what else? I think she got me I want to say a Batman, like one of the recent Batman ones. And then for some reason, she decided to get me the trade paperback of Swamp Thing, which has like 6 or 7 issues in it. I have never read a Swamp Thing before. But
Same.
But I've always heard good things about the Alan Moore run. I mean, if you talk to any major comic person, they're like, the Swamp Thing Alan Moore run is one of the best books ever. When I started reading this, I had, outside of what I've seen on cartoons, and I will admit I did watch the 1980 something Swamp Thing TV series. I have watched that. I have not seen the remake recently.
I just remember there's an attractive woman on that.
Well, that's every Swamp Thing. He's in love with an attractive woman.
And I was young, and yeah, that was yeah.
So I had no real background on who Swamp Thing was, what he was all about, what his stories were going to be all about.
Right.
But I can see why people talk about this so much, because it's so, outside the park. It's so different than a standard superhero comic. It's so weird. The first 3 stories, or first 3 or 4 issues, are just Swamp Thing trying to figure out if he's actually real. Because I guess there was a run.
Jesus. Yeah.
No, I'm assuming this was like a restructure of the canon, the Swamp Thing universe. Because
I think it was.
He was trying to figure out if he was actually, I think his name was, I want to say Tom Holland, but that sounds wrong.
But let's go with it. Let's just do that.
But I guess the original character who was Swamp Thing, his name was Tom, and then he died, and then originally he was the essence, became part of the earth or something, and then he became Swamp Thing. Yeah, so this is what book 2, I guess, reestablishes, that it really wasn't Tom that actually became Swamp Thing. It was just Tom died, and then the earth decided, hey, I need a protector to protect the lands. this dude just died in my land. I need to make sure things like this don't happen anymore. So I'm going to create Swamp Thing.
Right.
So the first 3 issues are just him trying to figure out who he really is. And then the beautiful woman that you were talking about that he is in love with, she is now married to somebody else. And we find out that this person she has married is actually some demon that has resurrected itself into her fiance's body.
Oof.
And now the demon is now raising the dead.
That's the worst rebound I've ever heard of.
Yeah, it's just wild and trippy. And then
honestly, what I'm hearing is like draft 1 of Spawn.
Wow. It might be, maybe. So you're telling me Todd McFarlane was influenced by Alan Moore?
I mean, wasn't everybody that generation influenced by Alan Moore?
Not Liefeld.
That's right. And don't forget it. He wasn't influenced by anybody, except for the fact that he was influenced by everybody.
Yeah. But yeah, the story continues. Eventually Spawn, damn it. Swamp Thing. Eventually Swamp Thing defeats the evil fiance. But then his girlfriend that he was trying to save, her soul gets cast down into hell. So he decomposes himself into the earth to send himself down into hell, where he meets Etrigan, the stranger,
or Malabaliga, or whatever his name was.
This is not Spawn we're talking about.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, my bad.
He meets all the supernatural characters in hell, finds her soul, brings him back to Earth, and you realize her. And I'm like, okay, great. This is a decent storyline. This actually seems cool. We're going to go now into figuring out the relationship between her and him. Nope. Alan Moore takes a 180 and says, we're now going to introduce an alien race into the storyline that comes down to Earth to find a new place to live, somehow lands in Swamp Thing's swamp, and they talk English like, it's not fully broken English, but it's like they create their own words that sound like English. But of course, Swamp Thing can't communicate with him. So the entire issue is just these aliens' point of view where we can't talk to Swamp Thing. And now at the end, one of the aliens dies because he looks like food to the alligators there in the swamp. And I'm like, this is a trippy series. Like, I don't know what Alan Moore was on, but it's a trippy series.
I can tell you exactly what Alan Moore was on.
Oh, I'm pretty sure we all know.
A monthly deadline. And you have to just make choices at some point. That's interesting. Like, because I've heard as well a lot about his run on Swamp Thing, but I haven't read any of it.
Yeah.
How does it kind of compare to just like the years I'm sure that you've experienced of like hearing about it versus what you got?
Well, it wasn't what I was expecting. Especially when you think of Alan Moore and you think of what he did with Watchmen. I'm envisioning that, or even Moore's run on Supreme. I'm envisioning sort of that type of characters, that type of, but it's very more feels subdued in a way.
Yeah.
Very reined in. It's not over the top like you would for a lot of those others. Like Watchmen is very over the top in its gratuity, this nudity.
And it's moreness. Like it's a Moore that's very confident of himself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I could imagine like Swamp Thing is like Moore is like, oh, I just don't want to make my bosses mad, you know. But then once he gets past that, he's like, I don't care about anybody. So middle fingers all the way down, right?
I can see that. Yeah.
And that's kind of the vibe I get from Moore at this point, especially because he's like, take my name off of any movie that comes out based on my stuff.
Well, see, now I'm looking at this, and he was writing Watchmen while writing the Swamp Thing series.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm looking at the book 2 for Swamp Thing. It says he was writing it from 1983 to 1987. Watchmen came out 1986 and 1987.
Started, yeah. I feel like there were some delays there as Watchmen came out. But yeah, no, for sure. That's interesting. Wow. Good for him.
Yeah. I mean, that's wild. I feel like it's still a relevant series in the sense that it's not something that, I wouldn't want to read this, honestly, for years and years. But in short sets like this, I can enjoy this pretty well.
So you're going to go track down all of Alan Moore's post-Watchmen work at this point?
I don't think I need to.
Wait, no, I was going to, oh no.
I don't think I
was
need
going to say
to,
you're going to go
though.
read All-Star Batman, but that's Frank Miller.
Yeah, that's Frank Miller. Let's keep our psychotic writers.
Frank
in
Miller
check.
has fallen farther than Alan Moore. Alan Moore at least has integrity.
Does he though?
I think so. He's a magician, so don't piss him off. Like he could.
Have you seen his masterclass
frog.
video series about writing?
I haven't, but it seems pretty great.
Yeah.
In like just pure entertainment value.
Okay, sure. Entertainment wise, Alan Moore beats Frank Miller by a long shot. Frank Miller would be like Chuck Dixon if we're talking about just pure entertainment.
Ooh. Now you're stepping on some landmines there, my friend.
Yes, controversial Kyrun. That's my name.
Can confirm. That's what everybody says about you.
Oh yeah, so that was my Week in Geek. Dan, what was yours?
I watched a movie.
Oh.
I actually went and watched a movie. Well,
No, wait, now did you go to the movie theaters or did you watch this?
I went to the movie theaters. I went and saw a movie called Godzilla Minus One, except I didn't watch that. I learned this actually after the fact. I bought the ticket for Godzilla Minus One, which is the most recent Godzilla movie.
Uh-huh.
But when I got to the theater, I realized the ticket I bought was for a movie called Godzilla Minus One, Minus Color. And so what I had learned, I was actually bummed because I was excited about watching Godzilla Minus One in theaters, but, you know, the way things work out. By the time I was kind of able to go see it, it was not in theaters anymore. And then time passed, and my wife was out of town, and I had a weekend. I'm like, well, I'm done planning for my classes to get ready to go to school. Is there a movie I want to watch? And I saw Godzilla Minus One. I'm like, wow, they put it back into theaters. And then I realized it was Godzilla Minus One Minus Color, which is basically they re-released Godzilla Minus One, this acclaimed movie from the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, in black and white. I was kind of like all in on this idea. I love this idea.
Sort of a playback to the original Godzilla's then.
Exactly. Like I'm not a connoisseur of Godzilla movies, but the ones I have seen have been ones I've enjoyed. I've seen the original Godzilla movie and was really impressed. Like the 1950 something original Godzilla. It's not just a disaster movie, for lack of a better word. It's a movie from Japanese culture trying to say something about post-war Japanese culture, and specifically post-war Japanese-American relations. That is, at the time, could be hard to swallow, but it's something that needed to be said. I actually really liked, I think it was 2014, the first entry into I think they call it the Monsterverse or whatever. The first Godzilla movie that was released on American shores, not the 1999 Matthew Broderick thing.
Matthew Broderick classic.
Although I don't hate that movie.
Oh, that's a good movie.
But
don't
I'm talking about the more recent one with Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch as husband and wife.
I'm sorry. Wait, what? I'm sorry. What?
Yeah. Kick-Ass, that guy. What's his name? He's the main star, and he's married in that movie to a character played by Elizabeth Olsen.
Wow.
Which makes it awkward when Age of Ultron comes out, because they just played people that made a baby.
No.
Which if you read the Ultimate Comics is not out of line.
Yeah, I was gonna say it totally fits now.
I actually like that movie quite a bit, right? The let them fight kind of stuff. And I like that what it produced, and I actually wrote an essay about this early on in the For All Intents and Purposes oeuvre, our lifespan. The Lovecraftian nature of it, how Godzilla is just this force of existence that humanity can't understand. And I must say, in terms of all of these themes that have been explored over the years, Godzilla Minus One leans into that aspect of it, hands down, bar none. I went into this movie understanding like the cultural impact. People are coming out of Godzilla Minus One saying like, I cried 3 times while watching this movie. I'm like, hold on, calm down, everybody. I didn't get emotional like a lot. I think I got emotional at the part they wanted me to get emotional at, specifically at the ending. But that being said, like the fact that people were reacting to that movie in this way, even I would say especially non-Japanese people, which I think is an important thing to to point out, because it's an inherently like Japanese movie. It's about Japanese people and Japanese topics at a specific point in time in history of Japan. And I think it says a lot about the quality of the movie that anybody can get emotionally invested in this movie is a testament to the story that's being told. So for those that don't know, Godzilla Minus One is basically, for lack of a better word, a retelling of the original Godzilla movie. It takes place in post-war Japan. It's like late 1940s Japan. And is a retelling, for all intents and purposes, ding, of that first story, right? And if you haven't seen that original Godzilla movie, one, you should stop listening and watch it. That first Godzilla movie is actually very, very good, despite it literally being a person in a rubber suit. It's very good. Have you seen it? Have you seen the original Godzilla movie?
I don't think I've seen the original one. I mean, I've definitely seen some Godzilla movies, ones from like the 60s and things like that. But
right.
I'm looking at Godzilla on Wikipedia right now, and it says it's from 1954. I don't think I saw that one.
It's good. And even like the weird like American re-release, which is like they just inserted some American like some American actor going like, well, we're important too. It's like, it's real bad, but like that, I would say like even the American release doesn't diminish like the thematic impact of what that movie is about, which is about nuclear war, which is about also the environmental impact of nuclear catastrophe. And it's actually very impactful because what I like about that original movie, what I really liked about the new movie, is that it's not a kaiju movie in that it's like, oh, look at this monster doing cool stuff. It's about, oh my God, something I don't understand is all of a sudden destroying everything around us, and I can't see any way we can stop it, which is kind of at the heart of that sort of cosmic, nigh Lovecraftian kind of horror, which is like, I think we created something that we don't understand. And what I love about the new movie is they do not shy away, which is something they didn't do in the 50s. They don't shy away from the devastation. They don't shy away from the human impact. This is not a movie about a monster. This is a movie about the people affected by a monster. I think that was also sort of amplified by the fact that I saw this movie in black and white. I was doing a little bit of reading. Once I learned that's the movie I was watching. After I saw the movie, I'm like, why did they release this in black and white? And what I'm impressed with is that they didn't just pull the color from it and re-release it as like a gimmick. They pulled the color from it, but then enhanced like the contrast so that it actually is a movie enhanced to look good in this format, and not just a movie with an Instagram filter on it, to make quick cash. And I will say this, having not knowing that I was kind of going into that situation, which is kind of, ignorant on my part. I can't believe I was that ignorant to realize I was going into that. I didn't see the word minus color on there. As I was watching the movie, I will say, except for one specific scene, there's a part of me that came out of that film going like, I can't actually imagine this movie being in color. Right? Like it felt like it was filmed for what I saw it as. So
if you think if you went back now and rewatched it in color, you would just not enjoy it as much? Really?
Absolutely not. I would think I would love it. I think that's what I'm looking forward to more than anything. I'm like, release the shit on DVD. I'm ready to watch this in color, right? Because there's only one scene where I'm like, I'm kind of confused as to what's happening, and I think it's only because I can't see the color going on. I don't want to say anything more for risk of spoilers. But
don't worry about me spoiling. I feel free to spoil.
Okay, so let's. So, spoiler alert: Godzilla destroys a city.
Oh my God!
And a character is very sad, and starts getting bathed in some sort of liquid. The liquid in black and white looks black. So I'm like, is this oil because of the city destruction? Is it blood?
Oh.
Is it just rain/water? I'm not sure. Wow. That was the only instance where I felt color could have benefited the movie. And honestly, if that was a scene where it is like something like blood, or if they had just like layered in that color, it would have been incredible, absolutely incredible and impactful. But I don't think it was necessary. The thing is, like, especially considering the historical context of the setting, I feel like the black and white really enhanced everything. Because I've seen actually a lot of movies, because I'm a big Akira Kurosawa fan. Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot of his movies from the 50s and 60s, which are all black and white. And it kind of gave me a visual language to really appreciate this movie for what it is. And at points, I kind of forgot that I'm like, oh, this is a movie that was made last year. Right? That it kind of like they filmed it in a way, and the acting was also kind of presented in a way. And I think it's also a testament to how well directed this film is, and how well acted it is. That despite being a movie recently made, it really there's a really clear lineage to the 1950s and 60s Japanese cinema that I'm familiar with, and showed a real kind of conscious but anachronistic cinematic expression that I never thought would exist, because I feel like Japan especially is always on the forefront of change and innovation. I'm not saying it's not doing that here, but it's doing so in such a restrained and focused effort to evoke a previous point in history that it's incredible to see Japanese cinema looking backward in a way and respecting the history of that medium in a way that seems so authentic, to the point where I'm like, at points watching this movie, like, this movie wasn't made in 1962. That's incredible. It's an incredible movie. I would say probably the best Godzilla movie I have ever seen. But I will buffer that by saying I haven't seen a lot of Godzilla movies. I've seen the original. Mm-hmm. I saw that American 1998 movie. Okay. Classic. Right? Where the Wallflowers re-recorded David Bowie's Hero for that movie. I saw the 2014 movie that I very much like, but it also has the weird side effect of Quicksilver being married to Scarlet Witch. And I've seen, what was the movie?
Kong and Godzilla?
I've seen Skull Island.
Okay.
But I don't think I've seen Kong versus Godzilla yet.
That was actually a pretty good one.
I wouldn't be surprised, because like Skull Island's a really good movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's like straight up 90s, like Brendan Fraser mummy level fun.
Oh yeah.
Oh, dude, it was great.
So I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for Godzilla Minus One, and you are just loving the movie. Now I want to know, does it surprise you that they're able to put so much care into this movie and blow your mind so much with just a $15 million budget?
So the budget has actually been a little controversial.
Okay.
From what I've seen, the budget is arguably between $15 and $20 million.
Okay.
But that doesn't diminish your point.
Still $20 million for a movie which is heavily CGI'd.
Hey, Kyrun, can you quickly look up the budget for The Marvels?
Oh God, I don't want to.
A great movie, by the way. A very good movie.
I
very much enjoy The Marvels.
It was enjoyable, yes. Budget of $274.8 million.
Yep.
Yeah.
Godzilla, but I will also say it's a very different movie.
Sure.
I will say the seams showed. I don't know if that was enhanced by the black and whiteness of the movie that I saw, of the version that I saw. There are some times where I'm like, oh, wow, that looks really bad. But I will say it didn't take me out of it.
Okay.
Right? Honestly, I was really sympathetic because rendering water is really tough. And there are some times where there's like water bumping up against the side of a ship, for example. I'm like, that looks rough. But it's a 5-second shot. Who cares?
But you and Andrew, you guys even talk about a lot about video games. A lot of video games have tripled this budget to make a 30-minute or 30-hour video game.
Right.
And we're talking about a $20 million movie. I mean, that's crazy to get the level that you're talking about on this.
It looks as good as anything with the budget of the Marvels or whatever, right? Like, because one of the things the internet likes to do is point out all the CGI mistakes of something like Quantumania, right? Or the Marvels, which had triple, if not more, of the budget. And here's a movie with a quarter of that budget doing just as well.
Yep.
And I would say in a way that's less distracting, especially Quantumania. No offense to Quantumania.
Quantumania had a lot of things wrong. It wasn't just the budget.
Yeah, and then culturally, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But thanks a lot, Jonathan Majors. That
was even before that, though.
He had one job, buddy.
Yeah.
I would actually say that the money spent on computer graphics and the integration of computer graphics into live action footage is masterful. I think for all the kind of complaints, the one complaint I said about the sort of the CGI of like maybe using like, water physics does not diminish from like the most impactful scenes, which I think are actually Godzilla in the ocean coming up on a ship that is clearly underpowered of the force of nature that's about to attack it. That shit, pardon my language, that shit is horrifying. Of all the Godzilla movies I've seen, Godzilla has never been scarier. They do a great job of making Godzilla terrifying in this movie. He's not the star. He is the threat of this movie. And it is a movie about the human characters, but I think that people have lobbed criticisms about previous Godzilla movies, especially the American ones, of like, oh, you're focusing too much on the humans.
Yeah.
I think I read something like the total screen time that Godzilla has in this movie is like 16 minutes or something like that.
Oh, wow.
But there's not a minute wasted, and any minute more would have been wasted. The story that they're telling with the characters is beautiful, especially in the historical context of post-war Japan. The main character is a kamikaze pilot that didn't die during the war. And so he's feeling a lot of guilt and pressure, but also has a complete arc in that they do not shy away either from the devastation of World War II on Japan, that it was just leveled in the attacks. But also then they double down that by saying, oh, and then a giant lizard comes through and destroys everything too.
He just finishes off everything for you.
Which is where the title comes from. Godzilla Minus One. The reason why that title is given, because Japanese love to title stuff bizarrely. If you've played video games, like look at any Kingdom Hearts video game title, right? It's bizarre. The reason why they name it Godzilla Minus One is historical. They say the director said World War II brought Japan down to zero. And then we have Godzilla attack, and now it's at a -1.
Just taking it back.
It is a focused argument that they're making in this movie. But I'd be surprised if you were able to walk away from this movie not also feeling the historical impact of the story they were trying to tell.
Well, I do want to get a recap of when you watch it with color. Just as, like you said, just to see what differences the color added or maybe took away.
Yeah.
I am on, like I said, I was on the Wikipedia, and this is actually really shocking to me. So Godzilla Minus One is the 4th highest Japanese grossing live action film of all time.
Really?
4th highest.
Deserving of it, yeah.
Now, I said that purposely. I said 4th highest Japanese live action movie.
Okay.
That does not take into the fact the anime portion of things.
Of course not.
So,
yeah.
4th highest. If you add in the anime and just add it with the live action, it goes from 4th down to 25th.
We're not talking about this anymore. You and your anime contingent.
It is
coming in here with your agenda.
The top 13 movies from highest grossing Japanese middle are all anime movies. top.
That's not surprising. I mean, God, this is a whole different conversation we can say for a different day. But like,
I know, I get it. I get the culture there is consumed with anime too.
But like the whole approach to animation is so different in Japan than it is in America. Yeah. Like, that's not surprising. Like, especially with the Miyazakis of the world and like everything else. Like,
yeah, it's not looked at as like something, just for children or something, hidden, but even still, we're still talking about a film industry that's been around since, I mean, like we mentioned, Godzilla is now looking at 70 years of films.
Yeah.
And just this year. And the fact that this is the first one to even break that, I think it's actually, if I'm not looking at this properly, let me just see. I think this is the first one to break 100 million.
I would challenge anybody. I think it would be a fun exercise to watch that original Godzilla movie and then watch Godzilla Minus One, because it is kind of a retelling of it, and it would be a fun experiment. So, Kyrun, I guess I throw that at you. I think the original Godzilla is on streaming somewhere, and then maybe we could come back and talk about it. Talk about both of those movies. That'd be fun.
All right.
Screw Andrew. Who needs him?
Apparently not. You just have me on like the bench just waiting.
So if you, dear listeners, have any thoughts about the topic we discussed this week, feel free to leave your thoughts as comments on the page for this episode at forallintents.net. You can also post your comments and engage in conversations with other listeners on our Facebook page. You can also find us on the social media sites that Andrew and I frequent, which means you can find me on Instagram at @DBethelComics, and you can find Andrew on Mastodon at ProfoundDark at Dice.camp. While you're at our website at forallintents.net, you can also take a look at our YouTube page, which you can find by clicking on the link in the corner that says YouTube. There you'll find this show simulcast on YouTube. If you're listening to the show on YouTube, please like and subscribe, or as the kids like to say, ring that bell. We use 2 tracks of music for our show. One is called Disco Medusae, the other is called District 4. They're both written and performed by Kevin McLeod of the Clan McLeod, immortal swordsman, graph paper enthusiast, and musician extraordinaire. You can find his music at incompetech.filmmusic.io. And that's all licensed under the Creative Commons 4.0 Attribution License. If you like the show and like to help us out, the best way to do so would be to subscribe to the show using whichever podcasting service you happen to use. What would help us out even more, though, would be to leave some sort of review, whether a text review or using the proprietary metric will help spread the word to new potential listeners through the magic of algorithms. So, I want to bring in, to end the show, a little bit of con artists, if you'd like.
Okay.
With a either-or kind of question. As a creator, as both of us are, and as comic nerds, as both of us are, who would win in a fight? Crippling self-doubt?
Oh, God.
Or the fear of being judged?
Oh, God. I'm going to say self-doubt still wins out. I mean, we all have that idea of fear of being judged, but we're still willing to put ourselves out there.
That's fair. That's fair,
even if it's the idea that we're going to sell a couple more books, we still put it out there. But that crippling self-doubt gets me every freaking day.
It's fun. It's a fun existence to have. But the best way to overcome crippling self-doubt or fear of being judged is to definitely check into the weekly podcast called the Four Tales Podcast. Where can they find that podcast, Kyrun?
You can find that at fourtalespodcast.com. You can also find it on YouTube at Four Tales Podcast. That's the number 4, TALES podcast.
Kyrun, I hear that you make comics. Where can they find your comics?
Oh, man. Well, you can check out my comics at tauruscomics.com, TAURUS comics.com. And, this is Friday, February the 2nd. If you're in San Diego, tomorrow the 3rd or the 4th, come on down to the World Beat Center in San Diego for Black Comics Day. I'll be there all weekend selling my comics. I have a couple new prints that will hopefully be there. RA, if you can get that done properly.
That'd be nice, yeah.
Quickly, not properly, quickly. I have all my books available, and, if you want a commission, I'll maybe do a commission too. But, yeah.
Sounds like an incredible show.
I don't know. It's my first time I've been there, so I'll let you know next time I'm on for Con Artists.
I hope it's a great show for you.
No, I appreciate it.
The prints are great, and it's an exciting. It sounds like a new show. Is it a fairly new show?
No, this is actually the 4th show.
Oh, dang! Oh, even better that you get to go down there. Yeah.
If I can remember if it's IV or VI, it's either 4th or 6th show. This is the first time I've done it. I've heard great things before from other people. Like, I know people that are flying in from New York just to do this show for this weekend. So
Give us those details one more time.
Black Comics Day. It's in San Diego at the World Beat Center.
Excellent. Friday and Saturday?
Friday and Saturday. It's a free event, so you guys, if you are there, you can just walk in, enjoy the show. There's going to be panels. There's going to be a bunch of artists and creators. Greg Elise, Robert Love, Keith and Jones, Brian Lambert, and so many more people are going to be there. I'm going to be able to meet a lot of these people that I've been talking with over the internet for years. Finally get to meet them in person and see how much taller they are of me.
Which is going to be all of them.
Yes.
No offense.
Oh, I'm a short person. I understand that, and I'm fine with it.
I'm excited for you to discover how tall these people are. So until you discover how tall other people are, I'm D. Bethel.
And I am K. Silva.
And for all intents and purposes,
that was a podcast.
Thank you so much, Karen.
You're welcome. Anytime.
We got the next best thing to Andrew, which is the Kyrun.
No, I'm not the next best thing.
I'm
not even close.
We're going full Kyrun is what we're doing here.
I do not have any pants on right now. Hold on. Hey, you, kid. Go take a bath.
You don't even assign them a number? Which kid is it? Do they know?
The one that needs to take a shower right now.
And that's a Kyrun fact right there.
It really is. It really is. The moment I get home, my pants pop off. And just like, God, why can't I remember the green guy for DC?
Swamp Thing.
No. The
Green Lantern.
No.
Green Arrow.
No. The Spectre. Thank you.
Oh, yes. You're welcome.
Yes, controversial Kyrun. That's my name.
And that's also the new name for the episode.
Oh, wow. I thought it was No Pants Kyrun.
I'm always on the hunt for new titles.
Okay.
So
I should have known that. Actually, listening to all your episodes, I should know that.
And you should also say, so that was my Week in Geek.
Oh, yeah.
My Week in Geek, whatever.